What WHO Paris pullouts mean? Funding expertise setback for WHO India may be impacted, could have bigger impact than 2017 worsened fund squeeze. United States President Donald Trump signed an executive order to withdraw from the World Health Organization on his first day in office. The order gave reasons as the WHO's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic, failure to adopt urgently needed reforms, inability to demonstrate independence from the inappropriate political influence of WHO member states, and continued demand of unfairly onerous payments from the United States. World Health ripped us off. Everybody rips off the United States. It's not going to happen anymore. Trump had announced the US would leave the WHO in his last term 2017-21 as well, and had officially notified the UN General Secretary General of his decision in 2020. The decision was reversed by Joe Biden, who entered the Oval Office within 12 months of notice period. The WHO is a United Nations body that works with countries to strengthen the primary healthcare systems. It guidelines helps prepare government policies around the world, and it helps organize programs to tackle specific diseases. The US is the WHO's biggest source of funding, contributing around a fifth of the total. Health experts are concerned about the impact of the cut in funding and expertise that the WHO may experience in the coming years. The US pulling out will also sever the collaboration between the WHO and the US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which is key to international surveillance and response to health threats. There is no provision for withdrawal by a country in the WHO's constitution, but at the time US joined the organization in 1948, Congress had put a condition saying the country could withdraw after giving 1 year notice and meeting its financial obligations for the current year. What will change in the relationship between US and WHO? The executive order on withdrawing the United States from the World Health Organization highlights four key things that will happen. One, after any transfer of US funds and resources to the WHO will be passed to all US government personnel or contractors with the WHO will be recalled, and there will 3. The US will identify credible and transparent United States and international partners to assume necessary activities previously undertaken by the WHO. 4. The US will cease negotiations for the pandemic treaty the WHO is working on. The accord aims to better prepare countries to respond to future pandemics. Actions taken to effectuate such agreement and amendments will have no binding force on the United States, the executive order says. How is WHO funded and what will be the financial implications? The US is the biggest national contributor to the WHO's budget, and its withdrawal will have a significant impact. The executive order made the point that China, with a population of 41.4 billion, has 300% of the population of the United States, yet contributes nearly 90% less to the WHO. WHO's funding essentially comes in two ways: mandatory assessed contributions from all its member countries and voluntary contributions from countries or organizations. Over the years, the assessed contributions have remained stagnant and now cover less than 20% of the organization's budget. The US is the biggest payer of assessed contributions, accounting for 22%, 5%, followed by China at 15%. Involuntary contributions, however, while the US is still the biggest donor, accounting for around 13% of total contributions in 23, China accounted for only about 0.14% of the total contributions. The second biggest voluntary contribution was the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, close to 13%. I don't think the US pulling out is a surprise. There were signals from the incoming government. This is a clarion call for the leaders from the rest of the world to step up. We have been calling to everyone to contribute more. Indonesia, for example, has contributed significantly in preparation, said Dr. Algija, chair of the non-profit HND. Uh, FIND, and of the African Union's African Vaccine Delivery Alliance. The uncertainty around the US presidential election did result in the WHO recovering more voluntary contributions from other countries last year. In the 2024 funding round that ended in November, Australia, Indonesia, and Spain pledged $1.7 billion, helping the WHO rose 5.53% of the $7.1 billion it needs for program implementation between 25 to 28. This is up from 17% it had secured from the previous 4-year period in 2020. How has the WHO reacted to the order? In a statement, WHO said the World Health Organization regrets that an announcement WHO plays a crucial role in protecting the health and security of the world's people, including Americans. On the question of transparency, WHO said, with the participation of United States and other members, WHO has over past 7 years implemented the latest set of reforms in its history to transform accountability, cost effectiveness, and impact in countries. Will India be impacted by US decision in what ways? With the WHO losing a significant chunk of its funding, work across countries, including India, will likely to be affected. WHO participants in and support several health programs in Indian government, such as work on neglected tropical diseases, HIV, malaria, and tuberculosis, antimicrobial resistance, etc. It plays a significant role in India's immunization program, with WHO teams monitoring vaccine coverage. WHO participate in health programs of the countries across the world to the extent their governments allow. A funding cut like this would mean that they will not be able to effectively implement these programs, a public health expert from India who has previously worked with the WHO said. In addition, the loss of expertise from the US will impact WHO's role of providing guidance, whether it is a pandemic due to novel virus or chronic diseases. The WHO provides framework guidelines that are utilized and adopted by countries for their local programs. These guidelines are unusually developed by collecting all published evidence, grading them, and discussing the evidence in expert committees. These committees are constituted keeping in mind where the disease is endemic, where there is ongoing research, where countermeasures are produced. It is a representative of different regions and genders. American experts are likely to be a part of several such committees, and the work will be affected as they are pulled out. One, any transfer of US funds and resources to the WHO will be paused. To all US government personnel and contractors who are with the WHO will be recalled. Three, the US will identify credible and transparent United States and international partners to assume necessary activities previously undertaken by WHO. Fourth, US will cease negotiations for the pandemic treaty. The WHO is working on. US President Donald Trump decided to withdraw from the United States from Paris Agreement again, having done so in 2017 through an executive order signed on Monday. On the first day in office, Trump also ordered an immediate revocation of all climate finance agreement commitments made by the US during his inauguration speech. Trump promised to reverse some of the climate-friendly energy policies of the last few years, and reiterated his commitment to extracting more oil and gas to meet America's energy requirements. Trump's predecessor and successor Joe Biden had taken the US back into Paris Agreement in 2021. The US is the only one of the 194 member countries to have withdrawn from it. Incidentally, the US had not become the party to the 1997 Kyoto Protocol as well, having refused to ratify it after signing to it. The predecessor to Paris Agreement expired in 2020. The US is the world's second largest emitter of greenhouse gases, Paris Agreement's objective of keeping global warming below a certain level cannot be achieved without its full participation in the common efforts to reduce emissions. In many ways, second withdrawal could have a far reaching impact on the global climate action than the first. The decision has come at the start of Trump's second term and is accompanied by a slew of related decisions that threaten to dismantle the entire US climate policy. The first withdrawal, which came 6 months into the Trump presidency, was rather short lived. The US has ratified the Paris Agreement just a few months before Trump had become president. It has a provision that does not allow any country to withdraw within the first 3 years of ratification. There is also a 1 year wait time for the withdrawal to come into effect, so by the time US withdrawal became effective, it was almost time to rejoin with Biden winning the election. The process will be much swifter this time, and the withdrawal will come into effect next year. Trump also appears more clear about his policies, having already ordered the rollback of several energy related policies. He has also sought an immediate review of all regulations that hinder the development of domestic energy resources, including oil, natural gas, and coal. The production of crude oil and natural gas in the US increased during Trump's first term, though coal extractions reduced substantially. But this was largely in keeping with the overall trend in the US. Both in crude oil and natural gas production have shown an increasing trend in the last 15 years, except for a marginal dip during the coronavirus pandemic. This did not change during the Biden presidency either. Trump has been much more explicit about drilling new oil wells and gas fields this time, as a result of which fossil fuel production could see a sharp spike in the next 4 years. Some earlier estimates of the impact of Trump's expected policies suggested that additional 4 billion tons of emissions could be added in the next 4 years. Another major implication for the developing countries will be further squeeze in funds available for climate action. Trump had ordered an immediate revocation of the US climate US International Climate Finance Plan, an April 2021 announcement that promised to scale up US contributions to $11 billion annually by 2024. Last year, US claimed its preliminary estimates as suggesting that this pledge was met. But it is not just US government's contribution that would be affected. The US has the greatest influence on mobilizing private and international finance, which forms the bulk of the money that gets channeled into climate action. Trump's policies could see this source drying up as well. According to Trump, According to Trump, these measures are meant to protect American interests. In particular, the heavy concentration of the renewable energy supply chain in China makes the US extremely vulnerable to energy shocks. He has therefore talked about boosting the domestic production of renewable energy equipment through tariffs on cheaper Chinese equipment. Scaling up of domestic production of solar or wind energy would also result in the creation of new jobs, another important agenda for Trump. Meanwhile, increasing the production of oil and gas, which the US has in abundance, can help in energy security and self reliance, reducing the dependence on China while boosting employment. The biggest irritant in the scheme of things would be Paris Agreement requirements that the US cut down on its emissions. Trump has thus decided to do away with the agreement itself. He has long complained that international regulations on climate change has been unfair to the US because similar restrictions are not placed on China on account of being classified as a developing country. However, the fact is that the US has the largest share of historical emissions and therefore also the greatest responsibility to clean up. And it has not done even a fraction of what it has what it is mandated to. The fallout of Trump's second term on the international climate regime will be known in due course. What appears certain in that is that US would be unable to meet its 2030 emission targets. It is currently attempting to reduce its emissions by 50-52% by 2030 and by 60 to 66% by 2035. As of now, US is not on track to meet its 2030 emissions goal, and 4 years of Trump will make it almost certain that these are not achieved. In speech and action, Trump sticks to MAGA promise, send signal abroad. Donald Trump started his second presidential term with eyes set firmly on his MAGA base, demonstrating in words and action uh, his commitment to America first and announcing a break from global multilateralism in which United States has for long played a leadership role. His aides had promised a shock and awe start to Trump 2.0, Days of Thunder, as the former Trump strategist Steve Bannon has described it. The president himself declared in his inaugural address that the golden age of America begins right now. He pardoned nearly all of the 1,600 rioters who had stormed the United States Capitol in an attempt to overturn the outcome of 2020 presidential election 4 years ago and cast the Joe Biden administration as one that had carried out vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department. Immigration, the biggest issue of Trump's election campaign, was the major focus of the president's speeches and executive orders on day one. He declared a national emergency along the border with Mexico, suspended the entry of aliens into the US until it was found that the invasion at the southern border has ceased, announced a crackdown on undocumented immigrants already in the US, and ended birthright citizenship for children of undocumented migrants and non citizens and non permanent residents. The last of these will impact the children of Indians who go to work and live in the US on temporary visas, including H-1B visas and green cards. Indians comprise about 70% of the skilled professionals in the H-1B category. Some of these moves are almost certainly going to be challenged in US courts, like the ill-conceived Muslim countries travel ban was challenged at the start of Trump 1.0. He has framed illegal immigration into the US as law and order problem, and his driven actions were intended to as a signal to his base. On tariffs and trade, Trump refrained from announcing precipitate action against China or any other country and instead said he might impose a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico on February 1 over illegal immigration and the entry of fentanyl into the US. He also directed federal agencies to carry out sweeping review of the US trade policies and said that he may impose a universal tariff on all imports because essentially all the countries take advantage of the US. The executive order also directed officials to investigate the causes of large and persistent trade deficit and recommended appropriate measures such as global supplemental tariff and or other policies to remedy such deficits. In his inaugural address after being into office, Trump announced the creation of an external revenue service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues, which he said would facilitate massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury coming from foreign sources. In what ways the role of US customs and border protection might change in consequence of these steps remain to be seen. Trump also announced the withdrawal of the US from the World Health Organization and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, repeating the actions that he had taken in the first term in office. Monday's decision came at a time when there is a general consensus that cooperation and stronger collaboration among countries is critical to combating the existential threat posed by the warming of this planet and possible future pandemics. For the world and the international community, these actions suggest that President Trump will likely use the US continuance in the international alliances and groupings as a negotiating tool. The onus will then be on these partners and alliances to persuade the US to stay in and convey that Americans too will benefit. In the world cloud of Trump's 29th mini inaugural address, four words appear as the most spoken: American, America, nation, and country. One of the least spoken word was justice, and there was no mention at all of democracy. Contrast with the Biden's inaugural speech in 21, when democracy was the fourth most spoken word after American, America, and nation. Bracing for Trump, Delhi needs to negotiate challenges from Washington shifts on open markets, open borders, great power relations. As India processes Donald Trump's inaugural speech and subsequent executive orders, it must acknowledge that its relationship with the United States cannot continue as before. While Prime Minister Narendra Modi enjoyed a positive rapport with Trump during his first term, and considerable progress was made in bilateral relations, navigating Trump's return to the White House will not be straightforward. This does not imply any inherent hostility from Trump towards India. However, Delhi now faces challenges stemming from Trump's clear intent to fundamentally reshape America's internal and external policies. The development witnessed in Washington signal a historic shift in three crucial areas for India: open market, open borders, and America's great power relations. The development witnessed in Washington signal a historic shift in three crucial areas: open markets, open borders, and America's great power relations. It is premature for India to breathe a sigh of relief that Trump refrained from announcing major tariffs against trading partners, including India. His administration seemed poised to adopt a more deliberate and systematic approach to addressing US trade challenges, avoiding immediate punitive measures. Nevertheless, Trump has indicated that tariffs are inevitable in the near future. Given that India's past trade policy issues with Trump, it must prepare for increased pressure from the US for greater access to its market and other related matters. Indian commerce bureaucracy is infamous for its lack of creativity and flexibility, making it less than successful in building trade and investment partnerships around the world. It is essential for PM Modi to demand a new strategic approach to trade negotiations with the US. Modi must also temper the ideological bravado in his own party and government that routinely disses ties with the US, romanticizes engagement with Russia and China, and promotes loose talk on de-dollarization. Immigration will also pose significant challenges as Trump has placed it at forefront of the US political priorities. India cannot directly influence the American discourse surrounding legal immigration, particularly regarding H-1B visas, amid concerns from US tech companies and labor activists about the exploitation of Indian tech workers. While India is open to repatriating undocumented migrants, facilitating a smooth process requires considerable effort. Given the political weight of the issue in Washington, Delhi must proactively address the efficient identification and deportation of Indian nationals in the US. Lastly, uncertainty surrounding US relations with Russia and China significantly impacts India's security. While Delhi welcomes Trump's normalization of ties with Moscow, it is aware of any it is wary of any potential agreements with Beijing. India should recognize that the triangular dynamic between US, China, and Russia has fluctuated since independence. Delhi must accept that world's two foremost economies and military powers, Washington and Beijing, will always be open to mutual agreement and engagement and understanding. Trump has always been interested in negotiating a grand bargain with China. Losing sleep over US China ties highlights India's insecurity and masks the deep structural contradictions between Washington and Beijing. Therefore, it is crucial for India to decisively capitalize on existing opportunities to strengthen its strategic partnership with the US. Traditionally, Delhi had sought to slow down the engagement with Washington when the US steps up to to Beijing. This approach has been self-defeating. A proactive approach to building the partnership with US will serve the best safeguard against any changes in US-China ties. Trump's decision to withdraw from Paris Climate Agreement undermines it at a crucial juncture. UNFCCC has its task cut out. US President Donald Trump's decision to withdraw his country from the Paris Climate Pact has widely expected. In his campaign, he gave ample evidence that his attitude to the treaty has not changed in the 4 years he was out in office. He was more explicit about opening new oil and gas fields compared to 2016. What was anticipated, however, was the speed with which US President acted on its threat. In his last tenure, Trump had pulled the US off the climate pact 6 months after he assumed office. However, the Paris Pact technicalities ensured that US effectively withdrew from the treaty only a few months before Trump's presidency ended. This time, the US's exit will be swifter. In about a year, the world's second highest GHG emitter will join Iran, Libya, Yemen as the only countries outside 2015 deal. Iran, Libya, Yemen. Trump's 2017 decision was withdrawn by Joe Biden almost immediately after he took charge. Biden's track record on global warming mitigation is arguably the most among the best among American presidents. Even then, the US is among the large number of developed countries that are not on track to meet their emissions target for 2030. With Trump back at the helm, apprehensions that these targets would be compromised are not unfounded. Already, Trump had issues that will hurt the US wind's energy sector, despite warnings that clamping down on renewable energy will imperil jobs. He has signed a 2021 directive that sought to ensure that half of the new vehicles sold in US by 2030 would be electric. Trump's climate skepticism could bite deeper in his second innings, given that he has more allies at home compared to his last stint at the White House. The US decision comes at a critical time in climate change negotiations. The emissions cut commitments of the country do not put the world on course to meeting Paris Climate Pact targets. Countries are expected to announce new targets by February. The task for the UNFCCC, which stewards global climate negotiations now, is to ensure that the setback caused by the exit of the world's largest economy does not weaken the global resolve to scale up mitigation ambitions. Its underwhelming record of the past in ensuring financial commitments are honored, in piercing the impasse on fossil fuel use and breaking the ice between North and South, means that the UN agency has its task cut out. Congress has started a white t-shirt campaign. Other parties should join it on the ramp. Long before the Instagram age, Mahatma Gandhi made hand-sewn, hand-stitched cloth of economic exploitation. But the stunning innovation and marketing of khadi ossified over time, and what was the unique uniform? Congress has announced a white t-shirt movement for justice and equitable future for all. Leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi has sported the simple garment since his Bharat Jodo Yatra 2 years ago. It is a garment that is affordable and worn across the country. In addition, a beleaguered Congress may be hoping that it appeals to the youth. A revolution in the US, but Trump's movement carries internal contradictions, generates external oppositions. that he must navigate. As the world reflects on the implications of the US policies during the Donald Trump's second term as president, it is critical to examine the domestic origins of the sweeping policy agenda he presented in his inaugural speech and his subsequent actions. What is unfolding in the US is not merely a change of regime, it is a revolution aimed at fundamentally reshaping post war America. Trump refers to it as revolution of common sense. What is unfolding in US is not merely a change of regime, it is a revolution aimed at fundamentally reshaping post-war America. Trump refers to as a revolution of common sense. Liberals might label it as counter-revolution across various domains, including social, political, economics, and geographical spheres. Conversely, conservatives might see as a counter revolution aimed at thwarting the destabilization of Trump's transformative agenda from his first term by the so-called deep state. The American revolt against the liberal order has been brewing for some time in the 21st century. This growing discontent helped Trump, an outsider, defeat established political dynasties like the Clintons and the Bushes to win White House in the 2016 elections. The establishment and liberal media launched a relentless campaign against Trump, branding him a Russian agent and seeking to undermine his presidency at every turn. Thanks to his inexperience and many missteps, Trump lost the presidency in 2020. However, the establishment continued its assault, using full power of the state to push Trump out of politics during Joe Biden's presidency. The 2024 elections represented a decisive rejection of the liberal establishment's anti-Trump politics. While the establishment labeled Trump as a felon, his supporters viewed the campaign as a political witch hunt that stretched legal boundaries to convict him. The situation reflects a significant and deep divide within American society. If one is charitable, they might forgive Trump for claiming that God saved him from assassination attempt on July 13 for a purpose to reorient American politics at home and abroad. Most of his supporters believed that this was indeed a miracle and they were ready to give Trump another chance to pursue his revolution. For them, Trump is certainly the chosen one to challenge the establishment. Regardless of the question of divine influence, Trump is emerging a key figure in the major effort to radically overhaul America's social, political, and economic systems. It is fitting that Trump was sworn in the Capitol in the site of January 6, 2021 protest against Biden's elections. While the establishment termed these protests an insurrection, Trump and his supporters viewed the participants as hostages of the establishment. One of the Trump's first action was to pardon approximately 1,600 protesters still incarcerated, while Trump rescued his political family. Biden pardoned his own family members in the final moments of his presidency. The contrast has not gone unnoticed. Trump's revolution challenges four key aspects of entrenched liberal hegemony in America with significant implications for the global order centered around Washington as the leading power. First, the liberal belief in imposing to its superior values on society, covering gender identity, permissible speech, education, and the relationship between individuals and God, has faced backlash. Trump has promised to restore free speech, reverse gender identity politics, dismantle diversity regulations, and reintroduce traditional values into civic life. Unlike Biden, Trump does not categorize the world into democracies and autocracies, nor he does seek to promote human rights globally. First, the liberal belief in imposing superior values on society, covering gender identity, permissible speech, education, and the relationship between individuals and God, has faced backlash. Trump has promised to restore free speech, reverse gender identity politics, dismantle diversity regulations, and reintroduce traditional values into civic life. Second, the liberal notion that borders are irrelevant and that America should welcome all migrants has sparked significant political opposition. Trump's focus on reclaiming control over US borders and deporting illegal aliens emphasizes US terrestrial territorial sovereignty, a term previously dismissed by liberals. His presidency may reintroduce sovereignty, which has great currency outside the West. Third, liberal idea that America can indefinitely absorb global exports has lost support within the US political class. The current debate centers on the necessary measure to rebalance US trade with the world. Both Republicans and Democrats oppose the global trade framework centered around the World Trade Organization that was organized at the turn of the millennium. While Trump did not announce specific tariffs in his inaugural speech or initial executive orders, he reaffirmed his commitment to using tariffs to achieve various political and economic goals. Trump administration has initiated an internal review of tariff structures strategies with potential actions against specific countries forthcoming. The discourse on American policy will increasingly focus on fair trade and reciprocity as opposed to free trade and non-reciprocal commerce. Fourth, since World War II, liberal internationalists in Washington have insisted that Americans must bear any burden and pay any price to sustain US global leadership. Trump has tapped into movement that detests that globalist with some passion and demands first priority for US interest, foreign conflicts, and presumed imperatives of American leadership. Throughout his first term and beyond, Trump has criticized America's endless wars and emphasized the need for good relations with powers including Russia and China. Although he did not elaborate on foreign policy in his inaugural address, he expressed the desire to be a peacemaker, which could signal a reluctance to engage in conflict with China and Russia to uphold a liberal international order. However, this plays out How this plays out will have great bearings on the global order and the geopolitics of Eurasia and the Indo-Pacific. Trump's cabinet comprises members with diverse views on America's role abroad, ranging from advocates of restraint to those favoring a more muscular foreign policy. It remains to be seen how Trump will navigate these internal debates on issues like Gaza, Taiwan, Ukraine, and North Korea. What is evident, though, is that Trump is bringing a distinctly different approach to foreign policy, assertive on core interests, which may become fewer while negotiating deals on the other matters. Like all revolution, Trump's movement carries internal contradictions and generates external opposition. He can successfully navigate these competing imperatives within his movement and neutralize the hostility of his opponents. Trump could succeed in building a lasting domestic political coalition with policies that significantly diverged from the post war liberal hegemony in America and the world. Kolkata reckoning verdict in Arjikar case is welcome, but there are unanswered questions. The charge under which he has been convicted entail a minimum sentence of life imprisonment, while the maximum sentence can be capital punishment. His mother said she has no problem if the court hangs him for the crime. Several questions, however, remain unanswered. They lead to one to wonder whether he was the only one involved in his gruesome crime. Roy claims he is innocent. He has reportedly said that an IAS officer was involved in the incident. The events that followed IPS officer, the events that followed the discovery of the crime are at the very least suspect. The West Bengal government transferred hospital superintendent Arjikar's principal Sandeep Ghosh stepped down on August 12. There were nationwide protests which brought medical services to a halt. As the nation watched, the National Human Rights Commission intervened. It noted visible signs of struggle on the victim's body On August 14, Kolkata police formally handed Roy to the CBI. On 15th, protests turned violent and a mob vandalized the crime scene. The National Commission for Women accused the authorities of lapses and raised alarm that the crime site was renovated prematurely, leading to the possibilities of tampering. Supreme Court had to take action, and it was only by mid-September that Roy was arrested. He was accused of tampering with evidence. The FIR seemed to have been delayed. Supreme Court constituted a 10-member task force to address the safety of healthcare professionals. By the end of the month, the protest has spiraled into political movement. CBI, under intense pressure, raided the homes of Sandeep Ghosh and several others connected to the hospital. In the second week of December, court granted bail to Ghosh and Abhijit Mandal and the then officer in charge of the Tala police station after the CBI failed to file charge sheets within the statutory 90-day period. It was alleged that Ghosh knew about the crime before he took action. Another doctor at the Arjikar College and Hospital reportedly said that the CCTV footage captured the movements of 68 people, yet only Roy could be identified. There were multiple DNA samples, and it's possible for the crime scene. For the seminar room, no biological evidence or signs of struggle was found. The court has sentenced Sanjay Roy to life imprisonment. It has been held that Roy's DNA was found on the deceased. The verdict is welcome. It has come in quick time, however, I believe that the litigation has not answered all the questions. Beyond the Ram Mandir, between demolition of Babri Masjid Mosque in 1992 and consecration of Ramlala in Ayodhya in 23, hangs the tale of moral foundation of Indian republics as we know it and its long-term sustainability. The inauguration of the Hindu temple and consecration of a deity do not ordinarily make it to the global headlines, nor do they set alarm bells ringing for many. That the Pran Pratishtha or Ramlala did both stands to reason. The Ramlala in Ayodhya is not just a commonplace temple, nor is Ram an ordinary member of the vast Hindu pantheon. It is the Ram Mandir built on the sacred ground where the legend has it that Lord Ram was born and where the temple that marked the event was destroyed and a mosque built on the same sacred spot by Islamic invaders. The myth and history are entangled. The violence for repossession of the ground is documented, which has turned it into the predominant focus of Hindu Muslim conflict in North India. More than the eminent gathering and official ceremonies, it was the presence of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, not just as part of the distinguished crowd, but also Mukh Yagnam, the chief patron, appropriately attired as a Hindu devotee and supplicant seeking the blessings of Lord Ram on behalf of the nation. That signaled the significance of the event. Modi's words, Dev se Desh, Ram se Rashtra, put in contrast of the events leading up to the consecration, many sensed in the inauguration of Ram Mandir and Hindu rituals that the symbolization of ongoing transformation of India from a constitutional state to the creation of civilizational state where government sees itself not merely as a party to social construct within its regions. The speech, seen in juxtaposition of the installation of Sengol, a traditional spectre, in the new parliament building with images of Prime Minister Modi paying obeisance to Hindu priests and seeking blessings for the Indian republics, signaled something spectacularly novel: the blending of Hindu symbolism and India's sovereign socialist secular democratic republic committed to justice, equality, and liberty for the people gave the impression of the state moving towards construction from which many, particularly those who subscribed to Abrahamic religions like Islam and Christianity, felt excluded. In retrospect, the expected electoral bonanza for the BJP in the parliamentary election of 2024, resulting from the deliberate intertwining of Hindu symbols and those of the state, did not happen. The momentum of Hindu mobilization that was supported to deliver the resounding victory of over 400 seats to the BJP led NDA did not materialize. In fact, the BJP candidate with string of victories in the past in the Faizabad constituency where Ram Mandir is located lost election. Speculation in the media sometimes does not take into account the logic of electoral choice. Once the desired objective has been secured, people tend to look out for the next best thing. After the demand for the temple was met, the grim reality of unemployment, apprehension about the abrogation of reservation for the Dalits, promise of caste quotas appeared to have swayed many voters in the north. Once America promised unending possibility, now US President has effectively deleted transgender people from his America. Kamala Harris is for they them, President Trump is for you. That was one of the Trump's most notable political advertisements during his 24 presidential election. On inauguration day, he made good on it. He declared it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. The crowd erupted in applause, giving him a standing ovation. According to US Census Bureau Household Pulse Survey, 1.14% of nation's adult population, or around 3 million Americans, identify as transgender. Now they have been designated as pretenders. US agencies have been told to cease pretending that men can be women and women can be men while enforcing laws that protects against such discrimination. While the decree will surely be challenged in court, its symbolic import is clear. DEI, or diversity, equity and inclusion, is enemy number one in America's culture war. For Trump, transgender rights are the lowest hanging fruit in the tree he wants to chop down. He was more worried of upsetting TikTok users by banning the app than transgender Americans. The transgender rights have moved center stage in the culture war is also a marker of how much the world has changed. In 1992, firebrand right-wing Republican Patrick Buchanan gave his famous culture war speech at Republican National Convention, where he tore into the Democratic ticket of Bill Clinton and Al Gore as the most pro-lesbian, pro-gay ticket in history. The word transgender does not occur in his speech. However, he said that the Democratic Convention was filled with 20,000 liberals and radicals dressed up as moderates and centrists, the greatest single exhibition of cross-dressing in American political history. 25 Trump would bristle if anyone would call him anti-gay, but he has effectively deleted transgender Americans from America. It places America at odds with the much of the world. Even India has recognized transgender people legally, but Trump understands that as humans, we find the predictability of binary much safer than the non-binary. And government bureaucracy is all about conformity and people in boxes. Transgender, by definition, is something out of the box. The non binary feels like a scary spectrum of unending possibility, yet once America promised the unending possibility, your personal freedom was the ultimate promise of the Statute of Liberty. It was the Statute of Liberty, so to speak, and it pulled tens of thousands of people from across the world. It feels no accident that the first South Asian LGBT magazine, Tricone, was started by two gay Indian immigrants in California. They had known that they were gay in India, but they could claim it in America. I remember reading about it in a magazine in India. I looked at the photograph of Indian gays and lesbians marching in a pride parade in San Francisco in wonder. That freedom to be themselves free from log kya kahenge seemed an impossible dream in India at the time. Years later, I walked in such a parade myself in San Francisco with some of the same people and that photograph. And many years after, I walked in a similar march in Kolkata. Its cries of Azadi rang us around us. The arc of moral universe seemed long, but as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had promised, it seemed to bend towards justice. Yet, as Trump has shown, freedom is always a work in progress. It can be won, but it can also be rolled back. It's also worth questioning our own discomfort with difference. Not just Trump's pronoun preferences can feel like a minefield for the unwary. The alphabet accumulation in LGBTQIA+ feels intimidating. Too many colors for one rainbow. Cancel culture can create its own backlash as we lose our ability to judge whether a laugh, say, in using the correct pronouns, stems from unawareness or malice. On the other hand, the debate over same sex marriage and adoption has shown in India governments might willing to tolerate a gay or lesbian identity but refuse to grant it equal rights as the majority. All boxes are not created equal. The fact is that people who exist outside assigned boxes are nervous, as gay men in India who knew no one likes him, hijras and their flagrant display of their differences scared me. I was afraid that they had X-ray vision, whereby they would somehow discern my secret, the one I had tried so hard to keep hidden from my rest of the world. But because they had the courage to be themselves, because they had fought in trenches and in faced police lathis, the court could not pretend they were a masculine minority whose rights did not matter. Gay men, especially of privilege, could possibly get away with it, but the court passed over their rights as well. Transgender recognition came through 2014 NALSA verdict. Gays and Section 377 had to wait till 2018. The gay rights movement owes much to the trans rights movement. Gay rights might be dismissed as Western aberration, but Shikhandi and Ayappa are part of our mythological DNA. In the famous story of Ramayana, Lord Rama asked all men and women to return to Ayodhya. When he returned from exile, he found the Hijras, neither men nor women, sitting outside. He welcomed them to Ayodhya. Trump's decree will mean transgenders would disappear, but he showed that his new golden age for America will be no Ram Rajya. A cultural awakening, Ram Temple goes beyond religion, it expresses national ethos. The Ram Mandir in Ayodhya marks a cultural renaissance in Bharat. This cultural wave transcends the ethos put in place in medieval India, which was marked by aggressors and invaders, and heralds a new dawn. The past decade has not only seen a cultural resurgence but also witnessed technological innovation and a manufacturing revolution. Ayodhya then will go down in history not only as religious site but also a place where faith, power and the economy will converge under an overarching sense of inclusivity. With the booming investment plan of $10 billion in and around the temple, there will be a boost to the economy, not just in Ayodhya but nationally. The investment is likely to create lakhs of jobs in the region, along with boom in the hospitality sector. Several small businesses and crafts they are making temple miniatures, lanterns, puja samagri, etc. will promote skill development and uplift the marginalized. It will serve as an impetus to revive local craftsmanship and boost infrastructure, molding the holy ship city into a modern spiritual tourism hub and contributing to economic growth while preserving cultural heritage. The Renaissance at Ayodhya then goes beyond bricks and mortar. It fosters pride in India's diversity, history, and encourages future generations to explore their roots. The Ram Mandir reasserts our belief in Sanatan Dharma, which goes beyond religious frontiers. Those who frame the Ram Mandir in the context of political power undermine the piety associated with it. It stands as symbol of national unity and cohesion. With a mosque being constructed alongside the mandir, Ayodhya will stand as a testament to important pillars of constitution, secularism and pluralism. From its inception with the Bhumi Pujan in the consecration of uh, Ramlala, the temple has been site for inclusivity. The soil was collected from sites that are important for Dalits and other marginalized communities, reinforcing the idea that temples stands on ground enriched by diverse cultural narratives. The complex will include temples dedicated to gurus of Lord Ram, Vasishtha and Vishwamitra, Maharishi Valmiki, Agastya and Ram, devotee Kevat, King Nishad, Mata Shabri, reflecting vision rooted in equality and making them part of national consciousness. The temple stands as a symbol of core Bharatiya values. It is a testament to both hope and commitment that we stand in a moment where our values, history, and roots are renewed. Ram Mandir is deeply woven into the construction of national identity. It is a foundation of true nationalism and takes forward the vision articulated by B.R. Ambedkar. The nation and nationalism are not political construct; they are animated by social feeling that fosters sentiment of fellowship transcending class and caste differences. Ambedkar wanted such a sentiment to thrive, and it required more than just shared race, culture, or language. It necessitated a spiritual essence and a deep emotional tie, a longing but not to belong to any other group. The Ram Mandir, as a cultural and spiritual symbol, has potential to fulfill these conditions by uniting diverse communities under a common identity. The Ram Mandir represents civilizational justice by acknowledging the country's rich heritage. It is also a repository of the collective spiritual conscience of the people. It reaffirms historical identity while at the same time enhancing both the sentiments and sense of duty towards the broader society. Today, the temple stands at the epitome of devotion, a pure place where rituals and prayers celebrate the greatness of Lord Ram, who is worshipped not only as deity but also as an enemy, embodiment of morality, integrity, and righteousness. Ram Mandir is also a uniting symbol and the cultural marker for Hindus across the globe. A groom, bride, mayor, and 200 calves in Rajasthan village. Vijay weds Aruna but without crackers. DJ. Mamta government approaches High Court, seeks death for Arjikar convict. She should not do anything more, says victim's father. Three held for duping Bengaluru techie of 11 crore in digital arrest. FIR over Insta post with poems. Supreme Court directs no course against Congress MP. Supreme Court holds HC order to quash against MPs Dubey Tiwari over allegations that they forcefully entered the air traffic control office in the state's Deoghar and forced personnel to get clearance to their chartered flight to take off. Lost and found, Haryana policemen reunite 846 people with families. At NTCA meet, Union Minister asked for village relocation on priority. Gujarat, two workers clearing manhole die, contractor arrested. Inside command center in Prayagraj, confluence of manpower, tech excellence. 200 UP policemen and 4 centers are monitoring visitors. Trump policy fix unfair, unbalanced trade counter currency manipulation. Expect a fine balance of boosting growth and employment with continued fiscal prudence. Potential possibility of more energy supply from US to India, Petroleum Minister Puri. What Trump wife Melania's meme coins signal about crypto regulation in the US? On Friday night, Trump launched a meme coin by his own name, which surged from less than $10 on Saturday morning to as high as 74 before giving up some of his gains on Monday. Brendan backs Happy Butler. Trump pardons 1,500 charged for 2021 Capitol riots, says end of grave injustice. Dhaka vows to pursue Hasina's return, may seek global support. 18 Democratic-led states to stop Trump's birthright citizenship order. Terrorism has changed. UK Prime Minister warns of threats from loners. Keir Starmer. Government Imran Party stocks hits over panels. We need everything. Gazans ponder a tough task of rebuilding. Nobel laureate Han King mines South Korea's nightmares and her own. Trump to end birthright citizenship will hit Indians in US 18 states through. US exits from WHO among first orders. Fieldwork in India may be affected. Deportation shadow falls over 20,000 undocumented Indians. 5 days after attack at house, Saif Ali Khan walks out. Law seeks EC response to 20 queries raised by JPC on joint polls. Top Maoist leader with 1 crore bounty among 14 gunned down in encounter. BJP's Gahlot draws on his AAP past for a future. Delhi must work with Centre. AAP's Assam 75-year-old government school gets a makeover, others in pipeline. Pune's IITM develops system to predict dengue outbreak. In a first, Delhi police uses AI using Republic Day practice. Eye on Best Marching Contingent award. SIT to prove AAP's government schemes, free education for needy students. Kejriwal's Golden Deer remark draws ire of BJP leaders. Chunavi Hindu. Obstructionist approach of LG likely to get reduced substantially after we win. Maharashtra Agriculture Department finds 4.4 lakh bogus crop insurance claims. Mathura Mass Committee urges Supreme Court to close Centre's right to file response. So that's all. See you in the next one.